Hi, Hannah.
Janet.
Did you already start recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, cool.
I can pause it though for now, just because I think we're just going to go over some preliminary details.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hey, Donna.
Hi there, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
And Commissioner Marilees, good to see you again.
Hey, Nicholas.
This twice in 3 days.
Yeah. Sorry about that other one.
No, no, Commissioner Marilees, don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for. For the other commissioners, we had a meeting with some neighbors near the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve to kind of talk about some general county issues that really ended up focusing on the Department of Public Works more than parks. But we had a couple issues that they were interested in, and Commissioner Marilees and I saw each other there.
All right, so it looks like it's 4:01, so we might as well get ourselves kicked off here. So I guess, well, first of all, good afternoon. Welcome to the special meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission. We're still planning on holding our normally scheduled monthly meeting next Thursday, April 7th, but we've dedicated this special meeting time so that we can align on commission priorities for the coming year. So really excited to get into it and start talking a little bit about goals, objectives, and the work plan. So I guess just to get into it, maybe we can start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, there we go. All right, great. All right, so let's get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. Okay, so let's move on to the roll call. Janet, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Marilees?
Here.
Commissioner Okello?
Here.
Chair Laguna?
Here.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry, I was on mute there. Apologies. All right, since we adopted a resolution to continue meeting virtually, I believe it was on March 3rd, we can actually move straight to item 3, which is action to set the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to set the agenda?
I move we set the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Excellent. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Okello?
Yes.
Commissioner Marilees?
Here. Yeah, I mean, yes.
Chair Laguna?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to move to item 4, which is public comments. So we'll provide the general public with an opportunity to provide comments. Because this is a special meeting, public comment is a bit different from our normal monthly meetings. So Janet, could you please read the public participation instructions for the audience?
Yes, Chair. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raised hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period and for items on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raised hand feature to raise your hand to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Please note that members of the public must wait for my prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raised hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand at the beginning of the meeting for an agenda item that is later in the meeting. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking.
Great. And Janet, one other thing. So for this special meeting, I believe that this is the one opportunity to provide public comment, as well as the public comment needs to be specific to item 5. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. All right.
Okay, so we're opening it up to comment to item number 5 on public comment. If your hand is raised, your name will be called. Let me see. I do see one hand raised from Carolal Ann Young. Ms. Young, please accept the invitation, unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I would like to just ask a quick question. When you said that we can't have a public comment except on agenda item 5, are we allowed to ask questions during your presentation if there's anything we don't understand or something? You don't know. That was directed to you, Chair Laguna.
Sure. Yeah, and I believe that this is the only opportunity for public comment. I don't know if I can ask Craig or someone else. But I believe this is the only opportunity to provide public comment for the duration of this special meeting.
Okay, well then I'll try to be quick because some meetings give you 3 minutes, but this one's only 2. So in the interest of transparency, my question is, where's the meat? I looked on the agenda and there really isn't any backup documentation like they have on the Board of Supervisors meetings where you can click on the agenda item and then read the presentation. There's no budget. There's no list of priority items, and I don't see much as far as the work plan. But as far as that goes, I know that there's going to be a purchase soon of the South Wave parcel for Big Wave, and I wanted to make sure that that's included in your 2023 budget because it is apparently zoned for a community center. And as you know, the Mid-Coast lacks facilities. I looked in the parks budget, and the 5-year capital improvement project for Flood Park is 26 million, is 13 million for this year. But there's nothing for the Mid-Coast other than trees in Quarry Park and a pump track that they've already taken our Mid-Coast mitigation fees to fund. So I'm hoping that this time you will budget for it and, make a presentation or at least think about us in the name of equity, because we do not have a lot of the features that other communities have. And then I would like to suggest, and I know Commissioner Green, who hasn't seemed to have been on these calls lately, she suggested that there's be budgets for every item. And I don't know why you guys don't put your budget out there when you're, especially on a meeting like this. But that was my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I'll next call on our next hand raised, which is Fran Pollard. Ms. Pollard, please click on raise your hand and begin speaking. Can you hear us? Ms. Pollard? Okay. Ms. Pollard?
Yes,
Can
can
you-
you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I agree with what Carlisle just said. The agenda is so vague, it's hard to know what to say. But I have 3 points I really care about. That's the fire prevention. I'm urging the county to designate more money this year to remove the trees along the border that connects to the community. At least, I mean, that was done by RCD, and it's probably the most urgent thing. And for Quarry Park, I'm talking about. I'm Fran Pollard, live next to Quarry Park, and we're in most danger of fire in the park because the whole community surrounds the park. And it's a very dense community. And if anything ever happens, there's only one way out for this whole community, 7,000 to 8,000 people trying to get on Highway 1. And that's almost impossible sometimes on regular days. So please, I'm urging you, you provide extra money. I know there's a surplus, giving lots of money to lots of different parks, and only what, $1 million for Quarry Park to cut the trees. That has to be done this year. And the dog park, we definitely need a dog park besides the dog off leash park, which is all that ever gets talked about. People need a dog park, and I requested Marata Surf East. I'm hoping that that would be able to be done. And keep them out of the lower Quarry Park, the tot lot, and the 2 acres above. That's the only open space we have for children and families to play ball or play games or run around. So, but there's always dogs in the park, and it's getting worse and worse because nobody ever tells them not to be in that park, in the 2 acres above the tot lot. That has to be done. It's the only area for kids. And I think in this case, since the dogs have all the trails, hundreds of miles to play in the park, that 2 acres isn't asking too much for families and for people to play in. And my other
Start wrapping it
concern,
up, please.
pardon me?
Please start wrapping it up. Your 2 minutes is almost
Yes,
done.
one more thing, parking. I have to include parking, and I know that they've been cutting the trees around Nicholas, where we talked about by the shed. So is that to prepare for parking, I hope? Okay, well, if he's not going to answer, anyway, I hope that is, and I thank you for that. And I thought of another place that I see has been, I took a walk the other day and see the end of the meadow where I suggested that the pump track go. I think it's been cleared, and I was hoping that maybe that could be extra parking if it's needed at the end of the meadow. So those are my 3 points for today. I hope that's all. If you talk about anything else, we're not going to get a chance to say anything when you're discussing issues. Is that right?
This is the only opportunity for public comment. But I think as we're going through this, and I'll talk about it in the next point here. A lot of our focus for today is going to be around aligning the goals and objectives for this year as well as next year. But we'll get into that in the next item.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes public comment. There are no hands raised.
Fantastic. Okay, so then let's get into it. So now on to item 5, the reason for this special meeting, which is our Parks Commission retreat. So the purpose of this retreat is, first of all, to develop objectives and goals for our fiscal years 2022 and 2023. Second of all, to start building a commission work plan. We're not going to finish the work plan today, but we definitely want to be able to make sure that we start aligning on some of the objectives and goals for the commission for the coming years. And then third, to ensure that the commission is aligned with the Parks Department so that we can improve efficiencies for the coming year. One of the things that we've actually had that's been out there has been a work plan for, I believe a couple of years at this point. The purpose of today is for us to really begin to start to kind of realign and rework the work plan. So we're going to be not only talking about some of the priorities that are going to be going through over the coming couple years here, but also we're going to be reviewing that work plan and refreshing, refining, and updating that work plan as part of today's focus. So I guess just to make sure we can spend the majority of the time, if not all the time, to talk through this and start to really get to this new set of goals and objectives. I'm going to hand it over to our Parks Director, Nicholas Calderon, to introduce our facilitator, as well as kick off our session.
Thank you, Chair. So the commission will recall when the idea was discussed of having this retreat to really maximize the efficiency and effectiveness and really make sure that the commissioners could focus on the retreat and not have to worry about the facilitation of it. We wanted to bring in someone who could facilitate and someone who has great experience with the county departments, county boards and commissions. And really, there is no one that we could have gotten that is better than who we have today. Donna Valancourt. Donna is the former HR director for the county. Donna is the vice chair of the Veterans Commission and just has a wealth of knowledge that the county has certainly benefited from for years. And now the commission will have the same opportunity. So I'm going to turn it over to Donna, who will kind of take it from here and work with the commission on developing really this exciting opportunity and work plan.
Thank you, Nick. What a generous introduction. I appreciate it. As Nick mentioned, in my previous position as Director of Human Resources, I was responsible for several commissions. So I have a great appreciation and gratitude for the work and the contributions that you make to the county. And I'm very honored to be here, and thank you for trusting me with this process. So Hannah, I don't know if you can bring up the presentation.
Yes.
We'll start on page 2. Great. So this is our agenda for the next 2.5+ hours. I'm going to start you off with an exercise. I promise it won't be painful, be quick. We're going to establish some ground rules or group agreements that will be helpful in just moving us forward and keeping us on track. I'm going to spend a little bit of time about roles and responsibilities of boards and commissions, but not a lot. I understand that many of you already attended the training that Connie and her team put on earlier this month. We'll also be talking about the department's responsibility to the commission. The department then is going to make a presentation, and then we'll get into the planning pieces. We're going to review and revise the goals that you have. You have 6 goals now, as well as then the objectives and activities for each of the goals. We're going to prioritize the objectives and activities as far as we are able to get. We'll look at who's currently leading or our leads or subcommittee members. And do we want to stay? Do people want to stay on those subcommittees? Do those committees still make sense? Do we need to add committees or leads based on your discussion? And then we'll look at calendaring discussion topics for future meetings. Again, what does the commission need to hear or review or analyze in order to move their objectives forward, in order to, meet their stated goals? And then if there's any parking lot items, we'll look at how do we agendize those for future meetings. So that's the agenda. Any questions on that? Okay, so this is the exercise. I'd like you each, to the commissioners, to take a minute to think about your time on the commission and to think about, try to find one word that captures how you feel about your experience and describes your sense of accomplishment. And then I'm going to call on you, either ask you to volunteer or call on you to share with the group your response. So again, let's give you a minute to reflect on that one word that captures how you feel about your experience on the commission and describes your sense of accomplishment. Okay, if you've thought about the word, if there's anybody that would want to raise their hand, any of the commissioners. Hannah, I don't know if I'm able to see if they've raised their hands. Yep. Commissioner O'Kella. You can unmute.
About that. Sorry about that. The word that comes to mind for me is, I've felt that we've been ineffective.
Okay. So again, you don't, when about a sense of accomplishment, you feel that you haven't been as effective as you've wanted to be.
Yeah,
Again, I'm
really,
talking about you personally.
As effective as we were, of course we've had accomplishments, but I don't think we've been as effective as we can be.
Okay. What about you, our Chair Laguna?
Yeah, so when I saw this, the first word that kind of popped into my mind, and actually this is both in terms of like how I feel, but also kind of how I really would like kind of the commission to kind of help is actually the word enjoyment, right? So on one hand, for me, right, it's actually very enjoyable to know that I am kind of working with the Parks Department and others to better the park system and make sure that that the park system has everything that it can to be everything that it can. And then on the other side of it, right, enjoyment also represents what I actually want from the citizens of the county, right? And having them be able to enjoy all of the great gifts that we have and all of the fantastic parks that we have across our county, the varied parks, right? From the ones on the coast to the ones inland to the ones on the hill, really making sure that everyone is able to enjoy it.
Great, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Mariles.
Yeah, everybody can hear me. You're asking at a time where I just came to the end of 5 years of meetings on the dog committee, and we were turned down. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we were turned down recently for at least part of our suggestion. So I have to, the one word that I'd pick right now would be frustration. It takes much longer to get things done in government than you'd expect. And sometimes things don't go the way you would like them to go. We had a lot of community members that kind of looked to our committee to provide them what they were asking for, and we were unable to do that. So that was frustrating. And I know in general, I do feel a sense of accomplishment. The Parks Department has changed substantially over the 10 years that I've been on the commission in terms of getting resources from the county and getting the county leaders to value the Parks Department. That has totally changed. But still, I wish it was easier. I wish we could do more. I wish we could solve problems. And so, yeah, frustration is, I guess, unfortunately, that's the word I'd use right now.
So the current word is frustration. The longer term version of that is accomplishment.
If you had asked me 6 months or a year ago, I would have felt more accomplished, but I would have felt that things are going in the right direction. But yeah, frustration right now just because of recent occurrences.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And I think we have still to weigh in Commissioner Green.
Hi, sure. I think my word is limited.
Okay.
I feel that we have had challenges seeing information, getting information to the public, being able to develop action items that would be, coherent recommendations to the board, as is our purview. So limited.
Okay. Great. Maybe what a thought too is, what would your aspirations be? What would you want that word to be? Because it sounds like currently, right, there's been some frustration or you're feeling limited or ineffective, but I won't ask you to share, but really thinking about as we go through the next exercises regarding goals and objectives and action items to think about, from an aspirational perspective, what it is that you really would like to be. Okay, next page. So again, I think it's helpful to establish group agreements or ground rules on how kind of we will move forward over this next couple hours. So these are typical group agreements that I've used with others, but feel free to, I put them here for us to react to, but feel free to comment or change or add to. One would be that take responsibility for inviting participation. Want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to contribute and to be heard. Staying on topic, we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. Encouraging questions. If you don't, have the information that you need, ask questions. Of course, speaking respectfully and speaking one at a time. So we can do that virtually by raising our hands, virtual hand, and then allowing me to guide the process. So do those work for you all? Are there other things that you would like to add as you think about moving forward?
Yeah, I think I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
Or rather, I would like to suggest the addition of one. You speak at one end, but you listen at the other end. So I would include listening.
That's a great one to add. Is there a way, Hannah, that you can add that to the slide?
I think I'll have to exit out of the presentation mode to add that in, but I can do that.
It should just take take 1 second. I think it's really important. Perfect. Okay, and with that addition, does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Great. I don't see any hands raised. Awesome. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the roles and responsibilities. This is taken directly from the materials that were used in the training that occurred earlier this month. So boards and commissions are groups of local residents who address a specific area of interest with the expertise and lived experience they possess. We serve the county by gathering and analyzing information, inviting public input, and recommending options to the Board of Supervisors. Boards and commissions do not make policy decisions, manage or direct department staff or programs, commit county resources, or take an official position that has not been approved by the Board of Supervisors. We're all good with that. And then we'll look at some of the duties. Attending meetings regularly, learning what is the function of the commission on which you serve, and working collaboratively with the board and staff liaisons. Familiarizing yourself and ensuring compliance with regulatory statutes such as the Brown Act and the Public Records Act. Acting responsibly and effectively when using county assets, including personnel, time, property, equipment, and funds. Maintaining the highest ethical standards, respecting the voice, it should be and spirit of your commission peers and the community that you serve, developing a deeper bond or relationship with your commission, being an active member of a collaborative effort to serve the community good, advancing the goals of the commission, and bringing an equity lens into the makeup, priorities, and recommendations of the commission. Any questions on that? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So these are the roles and responsibilities of the Parks Department in supporting the Parks Commission. So informing the Parks Commission on key priorities or initiatives for the department, with a focus in particular on items that will eventually be presented to the Board of Supervisors. Providing timely and relevant information for the commission for the purpose of achieving commission goals, objectives, and activities. Assisting the commission in accomplishing your work plan goals and objectives when appropriate, and providing a staff liaison to the commission to assist in agenda development and clerking duties. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, so now we're ready to move into the Department of Parks presentation. I think that is Nick and Hannah.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm just going to switch the presentation and
Perfect.
I'll go into the presentation.
Great.
All right, thank you, Donna, for that introduction. And for this portion of the presentation, we'll be providing some information regarding the Parks Department's priorities, our work plans, and performance for this current fiscal year and next. So for this presentation, for the retreat, we'll be providing an overview of the processes that the department has in place for planning and for determining our priorities, what projects we have, our various initiatives that we work on, and we'll provide information on our work plan and budget development process and how we measure our success through performance measures. We'll go into some detail on the department's performance measures and how equity is incorporated into these measures. And we'll identify what priority topics the department will be planning to bring to the commission for the remainder of this fiscal year and next, and when those might be anticipated for future agendas. And in the interest of time, this will be a fairly high-level discussion of our planning processes and the work plan development process. It's not intended to be a full budget and performance presentation. So if you do have requests or questions for additional information, there will be a more detailed budget presentation for a future agenda during one of our regular meetings that will cover some of that in more detail. But if there are items where more clarification is requested, do let us know. And so as an overview of our planning and prioritization processes, so the department works on a 2-year budget cycle process in which we plan for our budgets over 2 consecutive fiscal years. We're currently in the 3rd quarter of our first fiscal year of the 2-year budget cycle, spanning July 2021 through June 2023. And the goal of doing a 2-year cycle is to make sure that budget revisions are more streamlined and there's opportunity to focus on budget performance in more detail during the 2nd year of the budget cycle. The budget development and adoption process occurs over several months and includes various opportunities for revisions and updates. However, the typical timing looks like initial budget kickoff meeting with departments starting in October, which includes an overview of the county manager's office and board priorities and the direction that they provide for the departments. Relevant guidance on these priorities is provided to departments in November, And then specific instructions on the budget development process is provided in January. This really kicks off the process for the department to have internal budget meetings and develop our budget deliverables between February and April. And while this does include specific department fiscal staff and management meetings around the budget, there's also other parallel processes that are in the works and that are established for project planning and determining what our budget needs are for the upcoming 2-year cycle. And this can include staff retreats at the management level, as well as within individual districts or divisions to discuss the top level priorities, the needs of the constituents we serve and our park users, strategic plan alignment, and the various projects that are anticipated and known for implementation. The respective park districts and divisions also develop a 2-year work plan, and this provides detail on any or all projects or initiatives that they plan to implement in the coming 2 years. And this helps inform what's feasible within the existing budget or capacity, what additional resources may be needed to implement these projects. And these projects or initiatives in the work plans can vary greatly in scale or scope, and they're meant to really capture a majority of what's feasible within the department's capacity to implement. These work plans are also able to provide a narrative for routine tasks that don't have a real budgetary, monetary amount assigned to them, but they do account for a large proportion of staff time and capacity on a day-to-day basis. So that's captured in these work plans as well. And through this process, we're continuously assessing needs and capacity in terms of what existing staff can accomplish and maintain our core services, and also determine where and when we need to hire professional service providers or vendors, and what costs are associated with that. Needs assessment can also include addressing the needs of the public and our park users, incorporating these into our planning processes, and looking internally at other needs like deferred maintenance and aging infrastructure, improved processes, et cetera. And this is all taken into consideration through this process. Our capital improvement projects work on a slightly different process, where we again start with a kickoff meeting to identify what projects we know of, and have a 5-year capital improvement projects list that's updated regularly to include projects we know of. This can also incorporate directives and projects identified by the county manager's office and board of supervisors and get incorporated into this project list. And we go through this process and submit certain projects to the Department of Public Works, where we are requesting engineering assistance and project management assistance on certain projects, and then identifying what other capital improvement projects the department will manage internally or with contractor support. And these are submitted with requests for funding, and not all may be approved or funded. So we do work on prioritizing these based on need. We then go to recommended and adopted budgets through April and May, the adopted budget being brought to the board in September. And then the implementation of our projects is really guided by the various work plans that the park districts and divisions have. And on the next slide, I'll give a snapshot of an example project and how that's outlined in a work plan. But these plans are really meant as an internal guidance document to assist in our project planning and implementation. They're really considered living documents that are updatable and changeable, and help with project implementation and tracking the progress over time. And so this is a project that's excerpted from the Natural Resource Management Division work plan. And it's included just to illustrate what details are included for a project. And so each discrete project that's described in the work plan, includes details on the timing. So when a project is intended to be implemented or completed, or if it's ongoing, brief details about the scope of what will be accomplished, budget details, so where the funding may be coming from, how much this is anticipated to cost, whether costs are supplemented by staff effort, and the responsibility, so who is responsible for completing the project or whether professional services may be needed. The table helps outline what the target timeframe is for completing different milestones for the project, and can be updated to reflect the actuals after completion has occurred. So for this project, the work is focused on showing not an invasive species control and vegetation management project for fuel reduction efforts at Quarry Park, and then outlines the details for when and how to plan for implementation, who will be doing what, how much is budgeted, and then the timing for which we would be planning for implementation. And now I'm going to transition into some details on our performance measures. This information provided by our fiscal services manager. So in 2020, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors prioritized equity and social justice for the county. And as part of this, worked with all the county departments, including parks, to incorporate an equity lens into our performance measures. And for the purposes of county performance, the equity is the goal of just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. And so the county believes that in order to achieve equity, we must work to create the conditions that allow all to reach their full potential, including a person's identity, such as race, gender, age, disabilities, sexual orientation or expression, and status that does not determine their life outcomes or opportunities. So viewing performance through an equity lens is an opportunity for the department to begin to understand what, if any, discrepancies exist with different demographic groups when interacting with the county programs and services, and identify ways to enhance or achieve equity through our existing efforts. And so again, in the interest of time, this will go over the Parks Department's performance measures. We do have Measure K performance measures, as well as performance measures for the county Shared Vision 2025 that we update periodically, but we'll focus on the 7 main department performance measures that we report out on. And there's 1 specific performance measure for each major budget unit, and 3 department-wide measures. And so the first measure is the % of reservations made by individuals residing in disadvantaged communities within San Mateo County. And this is defined as areas throughout San Mateo County that suffer from a combination of economic, health, and environmental burdens, including poverty, pollution, and poor health. We chose this definition in order to be able to take advantage of the California Office of Environmental Health and Hazard Assessment for disadvantaged communities, which is a mapping tool. And this will help us develop targets for actuals in terms of the reservation data that we have available, and the locations in which like residents are creating reservations through our department. The next performance measure is the % of interpretive programs that are offered to disadvantaged communities within San Mateo County. So the goal of the department's interpretive program is to provide environmental education and community engagement opportunities to cultivate a better understanding of the appreciation of natural, cultural, and recreational resources in the park system. The interpretive program provides programming for the general public and does make special effort to engage with residents from disadvantaged communities in order to achieve its outreach goals. And so works in partnership with a variety of community-based organizations, including those that service disadvantaged communities. And this performance measure tracks which it'll track whether classroom and field trips are provided in schools with at least 40% of students qualifying for free or reduced lunch programs, activities that are offered in partnership with community-based organizations that serve disadvantaged communities, and those programs that are coordinated with San Mateo County Health through the Parks RX program. The Parks Department is conducting projects to reduce fire fuels and improve forest health. And so this performance measure is looking at the total acreage of fire fuel reduction projects implemented each fiscal year. By removing overgrowth of dead and dying vegetation, we're improving the vitality of the forests and combating climate change and mitigating the threat of wildfire across the county. And the benefits of fire fuel reduction can be widespread. And while it's important to note that the department's ability to immediately serve communities in San Mateo County is contingent on whether they are located in proximity to county parks, it's important to acknowledge that wildfire risk reduction can be realized on very large scales in terms of the real scale and size of wildfires that have been observed over time, and regional air quality impacts and climate related impacts. This performance measure is related to the percentage of park staff that meet the Parks Department's equity training requirement. The department has a newly formed equity committee and established training committee that will identify and develop an equity training program for staff. And this will include equity specific training so staff can be more easily apply this to their learning on the job. And we'll also use visitor and staff surveys and will ultimately help the department with understanding how the program has impacted staff and park users. The department plans to appropriate a portion of the funding of the Fish and Game Fund to educational programs that are serving disadvantaged communities. It's the department goal to engage area schools that qualify for Title I funding and local community-based organizations that teach the importance of wildlife conservation. And so the performance for this this measure would focus on the percentage of fish and game funding that can contribute to public education and wildlife focused conservation in coordination in conjunction with disadvantaged communities or community-based organizations. The performance measure for the Coyote Point Marina, this is operated, the marina has operated continuously for over 53 years, and it operates independently of the county's general fund and is primarily dependent on the revenue generated from charges for services. The berth rental fees are the most significant source of revenue, so this is critical for the marina's financial health to keep as many berths occupied as possible. And so this measure is tracking the total occupancy of the marina's berths. And historically, the occupancy rates have been between 70 to 81%. And then the department has previously discussed capital projects and programs in detail, and this measure is to be able to track the proportion of capital improvement projects that are managed by the department and are on track to be completed on time and within budget. The capital projects program is focused on improving services, reliability, and creating operational efficiencies within the county parks department and within our park properties, and incorporates equity into its capital projects. For example, the Memorial Park facility replacement project included using single stall, gender neutral, and accessible design to provide a more comfortable and accessible camping experience for guests. And lastly, for information for consideration for the commission in terms of planning for future meetings and understanding the areas and topics that are priority for the Parks Department. These are items that we anticipate bringing to the commission during the rest of this calendar year and into next. And this will hopefully assist with the planning process for future agendas and identify opportunities for intersection with the commission's priorities and items that are identified by the commission for your goals and objectives and your work plan for this time frame as well. And that concludes my presentation. And I'll just put your slides up again, Donna.
Okay. Okay. I understand we also have another commissioner who hasn't been promoted to a panelist yet. Is it Commissioner Mana? Wondering how we do that, just to make sure that he's able to participate.
Yeah, I'm in this one. I'm on. I am
Awesome,
on.
awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I apologize because I did not see you there, and so did
I've
not
been here,
include
but
you.
it's okay. It's okay. I've been here.
Okay, my apologies.
It's all right.
Not see you listed. Okay. Great. So this is for level setting. Let's again, we're going to be talking about goals and objectives and actions. And so let's take a look at what those are, what those terms are. So when we think about, oh, Commissioner Green, yes. You raised your hand.
Do we at some point before we get into our own goals articulation have the opportunity to ask questions on the department presentation?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hannah. I'll let you run that.
Yeah.
Pretty quick, just clarifying questions. Thank you so much for all of that. So the perform, because I'm interested in budget and performance and really appreciated all the detail on process and measures. Were the performance measures you shared all of the department's performance measures, or are those just the equity ones?
Those are all of the department's performance measures, excluding our Measure K related performance measures. So we do have specific performance measures related to individual Measure K fund sources, but these are specific to our departmental budgets and 3 additional departmental performance measures.
Okay, thanks. And not asking what they are, but are there performance targets that go with the measures?
Yes, and so I think that again, the goal for this was just
No, that's fine. I just want to understand. It's okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know
on this. Yeah.
If those exist. Okay, thanks. And then for the equity committee, is that committee producing an action plan as part of its work? You mentioned like a training component, but like, will they be producing an equity action plan for the department? Do you know?
Yeah, the equity committee so currently has been meeting quarterly, and part I'm maybe let Nicholas speak to some of the overall goals for the committee and how that aligns with the county's other planning.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. So Commissioner Green, the equity committee is focused, has broken its goals out into internal and external. And so what we're working on right now is really developing I believe what you were asking for, which is that actionable list of next steps and actions we're going to take. We're still in the middle of developing that document. I think one of the biggest challenges around equity is acting before understanding. And we are really trying to make sure that we put enough time and effort into understanding before developing that action document. And the committee itself is still fairly new, but the ultimate goal will be to have a document that outlines both internal actions and external actions.
Thank you. And do the categories of equity being assessed and considered include socioeconomic inequity? I heard like protected classes, but like who you are.
So socioeconomic is included.
Okay, cool, thanks. And then last question is just about the calendar of items you came up, you put up at the end. Is the idea that those would all be action items to the committee? Because I think, you know, like making sure that we have that connection to the board that comes on the action of recommendation or not. So is that the intention with those?
So go for it, Hannah.
I would say there are some items there that are meant as informational to represent some of our ongoing initiatives and just to provide updates, but a lot of them are aligned with timing in which we'd anticipate presenting, you know, a specific project or initiative to the Board of Supervisors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess that would be my comment and ask on that, and something that can feed into the goals. But if we are to be an advisory body, we need a mechanism through which to advise, which is a vote for us. So I hope that for everything that will advance to the board, that those are presented to commission as action items so that we can have a documented opinion and notes and stuff that we can offer to the supervisors. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of Hannah and Nick? Okay, again, looks like there's a public comment, but maybe we defer to council. My understanding is that we're not taking public comment, correct? Craig, are you on the call? Okay, the hand is down.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Apologies, I thought I was talking away and my Zoom microphone was on the wrong setting. Yeah, you're correct. We're not doing public comment right now, and public comment is also not question and answer.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so let's now move to, again, the planning part of the agenda. And again, let's level set when we think about terms, the terms that we're going to be going over. So goal statement is typically very broad and long-term, whereas an objective statement is something that is very specific and targeted. And then the action, of course, is the steps to take the listed steps taken to achieve the objective. And just as an example, I give you for the Veterans Commission. So a goal is to develop an increased understanding of the current needs of San Mateo County veterans and their families, right? So it's very broad, right, and long-term. The objective for this particular year, or in 2020, was to actively participate in the 2020 Veterans Needs Assessment conducted by the county. So again, specific, targeted, right? And then action items would be assigning 2 commissioners to the Survey Development Committee, attending meetings, disseminating information to invite feedback, and marketing the survey through social media channels. So again, typically the actions are things that can be done. They're in support of the objective, but they're shorter term. They're things that can be done within a certain period of time, typically a year. Let's say we completed that in 2020, the Veterans Commission would likely keep the same goal, but potentially change the objective. So now the survey has been done. So maybe it's identifying the gaps that were in the survey and determining what kinds of services to recommend to fill those gaps, right? So that's just to give you a sense of kind of how the goals, objectives, and actions kind of all fit together. Okay, next slide. So when we look at what are the criteria for the goals for the strategic plan, they should reflect the mission of the commission. So they should be somehow connected to the mission, and they should benefit the community and be sustainable. And I reviewed the mission of the Parks Commission, which is representing the people of San Mateo County and in their interest, act as an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors on matters related to open space, parks and recreation, providing a public and transparent forum on items agendized for its consideration in coordination with the County Parks Director. Okay, any questions about that? So now let's move into our goals. And I know Hannah sent you all the work in advance, or the previous work plan that had the goals and different objectives and action items. So hopefully you've had a chance to review those and make notes and make suggestions about what to keep, what to change, and what to add. So starting with our first goal, so this is goal number 1 of 6. It's advise and make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors regarding the management and operation of county natural preserves, marine reserves, open space areas, trails, parks, and/or recreation areas and facilities within unincorporated San Mateo County. And you have that as a bylaw.
Hey, Donna.
I guess,
It looks like
there's a-
Commissioner Kello has his hands up.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I have a comment too
Commissioner
before we
O'Kelly.
start getting into all this stuff too. But yes, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner O'Kelly.
So you know what, I'll defer to the chair because the chair was gonna make some comment before we started. Perhaps what he was gonna say is what I was gonna say, but I'll defer to you, Chair Laguna.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess before we kind of got into it, and I can't say I'm the new guy anymore because I've already been here over a year. But when I was looking at the high level goals, right, it looked like some of the goals were, and it even says on the bottom of this one, bylaw direction, like so it was in the bylaws or some derivation of the bylaws, versus some that were done kind of after the fact. I wasn't sure, and I don't know if this is a question for Nicholas or for someone else, but I just wanted to get a little clarification on the goals that had been set for the previous work plan. How many of those are things that are directly tied to bylaws that we actually are the main kind of areas of focus? And I noticed that there were some that weren't lined up by the bylaws. So I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on how those initial goals were set up. And Commissioner Kell, I don't know if that's what you were asking, if you were going to ask something else, but that was one big question that I had when I looked at the work plan.
So I may help answer that question, because I was definitely involved, SMARC at the beginning, when the whole idea that we needed to have a set of, we needed to have a work plan for the year. And we looked at first of all, the resolution that established the commission. It was very, very specific on what the expectations were of what the commission needed to do and so on and so forth. And some of those expectations were incorporated into the bylaws.
Got it.
And so when we reference the bylaw, we're also referencing the resolution that created, essentially created the commission. And the other things that were added were obviously added because, we felt, that, there were certain other things that we needed to do. And I think that spills into what I wanted to say in my comments. I think we need to look at this as a work plan as something that's going to have items, relating to the internal operations of the commission, one, and obviously, things of external concern. And so, and the key word for me is advice. We advise the Board of Supervisors. We don't necessarily advise the department directly. We our responsibility, our charge is to advise the board of, the board of supervisors. So everything that we do, we need to be looking at the board of supervisors that we're going to be advising. Now, I feel in terms of the 2-year budgets that we are currently on, I think the train has left the station because the budgets were prepared, the budgets were presented by the board of supervisors, and they adopted the budgets. And so what the department is doing is just really implementing, the plan that the board has already adopted. And so I feel that, whatever action plan we develop, I think one key thing we need to be thinking about, we need to be thinking about the next 2-year budget cycle. And that's the only budget that we can influence. And so we can establish our priorities based on what we are expected to do as a commission, with the intent of impacting how the next budget cycle, how those resources are going to be spent to achieve, for instance, management and operation of county, of county natural resources within unincorporated areas. Yes, we are a county parks and rec commission, but our charge is just to focus on the unincorporated areas. Cities have their own budgets and cities are doing their own things in terms of parks and recreation. So I would suggest that we look at this instead of going through the detail of going through what we adopted previously. I think we should just have an open mind and say, okay, we're going to have certain things that are internal, such as, we need to amend our bylaws. And you saw something like that in the work plan, but also focus on external. And external to me is, what are we going to advise the board of supervisors in the next budget session as to what the priorities, what we think the priorities of the Parks and Recreation Department need to be? Where should the department be spending its money? And we can look at it in terms of what the services it provides, obviously, and what the capital projects, which capital projects should be prioritized. And I think those are the only 2 areas that, at least from a budget perspective, that the commission can advise the board of supervisors on.
So thank you for
comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Okela. So I think there are 2 subcommittees. One is the budget and performance, and one is projects, and I forgot the name of it. So I believe that you already have the structure established where you would be reviewing, potentially budget items and advising or working with the department and advising the board. You mentioned that keeping an open mind as we look at the goals, or maybe just starting new, but I am hoping that as a process for tonight, this evening, that we can at least go through the existing goals and identify what still, what we should keep, what you should keep. And again, we can always revise goals, we can add goals, but at least let's look at the goals that are existing and see if they still make sense. Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so looking at, we talked about a goal being very broad. This is obviously a bylaw direction. It was in the resolution, I'm assuming, and incorporated into bylaws of the Parks Commission. This is definitely an overarching goal. It's one of those goals that can remain every year, but then the objectives and action items under it can change depending on the priorities of the commission. So does anybody have any feedback on goal 1? Comments about whether or not to keep, to change?
Well, I mean, I would say this in and of itself is an articulation of, what we had just seen in kind of the prior mission statement, right? Or at least half of the discussion points. So It's also very, very, very broad, right? But
Right,
maybe that's what
right.
the objectives and the actions are for beneath the goal itself.
Okay, so any objections to keeping this goal, or Commissioner Green?
Just,
Have your hand raised.
I think like makes sense to keep it since it's so verbatim from the bylaws, but for it to be meaningful, having even potentially sub goals and then objectives might be useful.
Okay, well, after we finish the goal, we go through the goals, we can talk about, because I think really you can work on objectives that, that are in service of that goal, and the objectives can, again, be more specific and targeted. So, okay, I think we have agreement on goal 1. Yes, okay.
Yeah, and one more note for Commissioner
Sure.
Green. I think in the current work plan, I think there are 5 objectives, and then each of those 5 objectives has like a bunch of actions beneath it. So I think, yeah, I think we just need to figure out what the kind of right level of hierarchy is going to be for it. Once again, I would agree with you that this is a very broad and sweeping goal, right? But maybe we can clean it up when we go into the objectives and figure out like what are those sub goals that go underneath that we can actually measure, right? Because I think that's the other piece to this, right? I do want to make sure, because this is kind of hard to quantify, right? We need to make sure that we have kind of those priorities lined up, and also, of course, lined up with some of the Parks Department priorities as well. I found the presentation really enlightening in terms of the metrics in particular. That's the first time, and maybe you guys might have published it before, but it was the first time I'd actually seen it. So I do want to make sure that some of what you guys are measuring as a Parks Department is actually represented in some of the objectives that we have underneath these goals.
Yeah, through the chair, I think I would disagree with the general thoughts of what was just been said. I think that particular goal is very precise and clear. We need to provide to the Board of Supervisors. We need to advise them and provide them with specific recommendations as to how the county is going to manage its natural resources. It's very clear to me. How are we going to manage how much are we going to devote to managing resources, and where is the money going to come from? I think we're in a position to say, we should spend the money on A instead of on B, on C, and provide recommendations to the board in that regard. I think it's clear to me. It's not too broad. It's very, very clear to me.
No. And Commissioner Keller, just to respond real quick, I wasn't saying that it wasn't a clear goal. I was just saying that in order to break it into the specific steps that each one of us need to do as a commission to enable that goal, we definitely need to get more specific, if that makes sense to you.
Right. Again, I think it's very overarching, and it is exactly what this commission is charged to do, right? But creating, specific objectives then in service of that goal, allows you to be more specific and targeted in what you're trying to accomplish. And to the chair's comment about measuring, that's something that wasn't in the current plan, but I would encourage you, after you complete the work plan, to really look at how are we measuring our progress, right? What's the impact of this? What is the, when we're all done, what is it that objective and those actions, what do we hope to accomplish by that, right?
It looks like Commissioner Green's hand. Yeah.
Commissioner Green, you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I tried to lower it. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Great. Okay, so I think we are good with goal 1. And again, we're going to have an opportunity you all have an opportunity to look at the current objectives and action items and really get more specific about, what you want to accomplish under that. So let's go to goal 2. So this one is adopt and forward to the Board of Supervisors recommendations regarding fees to be charged for the use of the areas noted in number 1. So that's number 1 was, natural preserves, marine reserves, open space areas, trails, etc. So, and facilities. So adopting fees associated with those areas. Again, this is a bylaw direction, so I assume it was in the organizing resolution as well as then the bylaws. Is there any comments on this one? Any objection,
Again,
Commissioner?
again, I would say, insofar as this current budget cycle, it's a mute discussion. And so we need to think about the next budget cycle. So if there are going to be any recommendations as to reducing or increasing the fees that are currently being charged, then we can make such recommendations to the board, prior to the next, budget cycle. So I think we should keep it.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that this, like the other one, these are our responsibilities. These are our obligations. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. It doesn't feel like a goal to me. It's not something, it's reactive. We would take action on a thing that comes. Doesn't have anything to do with what we hope to achieve, except to execute this. So it feels like a check the box, yes or no kind of goal. And I think that that's consistent across the bylaw directed goals here. I think if we're not scrapping and starting from scratch with ambitions, I feel like it would be consistent to keep all the things that are bylaw directed. And then I just think it doesn't help us know what we want to do, though.
Right. Again, you're going to get more specific when you identify objectives associated with this. So yes, it's an overarching responsibility of the commission to adopt and forward recommendations regarding fees. But in your deliberations and discussions, you may say, I want to focus on, or the commission wants to focus, we want to increase equity, at the parks. And so we're going to focus on maybe eliminating fees in certain areas. That's going to be an objective for, and then what are the action items that you're going to identify associated with that?
Right. So to me, in my mind, what you just said, to like, if the goal of the commission would be to increase equity in the parks, refined, that's a goal, right? Not necessarily measurable, but something you want to achieve. And then you have something measurable in the objective. All of that falls under the umbrella of our responsibilities and duties, which is what's reflected here in the bylaws. So that's just my comments. I don't have scripted alternate goals, and I feel like that's hard to do in a session like this. So I don't have like a thing to swap in for it, but I just want to observe that like the goals as stated are just stating our responsibilities.
Okay. Any other discussion on the goals on goal 2?
If you wouldn't mind, I guess my question is, so this work plan was done before where these were stated as goals. So was the intent when this first kind of came through that the goals were to reflect the responsibilities? Because I think Commissioner Green, to your point, it does feel like that's the way it's been kind of laid out. I just wasn't there during the last work plan cycle. I don't know if many of you were, to really talk about kind of what was the thinking around putting these as the goals, and if it was truly, hey, these are just the responsibilities of the commission, then great, right? We'll use the objectives column to be able to kind of be more specific around what it is we can do. But I don't know if any of the other commissioners can provide some color on that.
Yeah, I think I could, because I think when I joined the commission, my expectation was I was joining a body, that had subcommittees that were doing some work.
Mhm.
And there were no subcommittees. And so in just reviewing the documents that created the commission and the bylaws, there were very specific expectations that the board had of us. And so when a work plan was suggested, it was critical that we focus the commission on exactly what it was supposed to do. So that's how you see, because we felt we were not focused enough on what we were supposed to do. I don't even think the commission knew that there was an expectation that annually we had to make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors. You see, so I got that from just reviewing, the resolution that created us. So we are essentially almost like we're starting from scratch. Let's focus on what it is that exactly we are supposed to do, and develop some very specific objectives around that. So that provides you how this whole document started.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, I think we can move to goal 3. So again, I think this is a bylaw direction, right? Advise the Board of Supervisors regarding fish, game, and wildlife policies and programs, and make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors regarding the expenditure of fish and game propagation funds.
Right.
So again, this would be consistent with the responsibilities of the commission.
Correct.
So again, we're keeping the ones that are associated with bylaw direction, correct?
I mean, can we lump, if it's all just like fulfill our duties under the bylaws, can we make that the goal?
Well, think about what some of the benefit would be by breaking it up this way, right? Because there may be specific things that you want to do associated with fish and game and wildlife policies, specific things you want to do related to fees, specific objectives that you want related to recommendations around the maintenance operations of parks. So if you just had simply bylaws.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No,
they're very different in scale is the problem I find. Like one is about the overall effort, and then one is specific to fees, and then this is even more specific to fish, game, and wildlife. Like they're very very different scales. And if the goal language really just says fulfill your obligation, which is what it does, then to me that's one, and then we could have goals that are about what we would like to actually accomplish, and objectives for that in our work plan. It's one suggestion.
Comments from other commissioners? Is there appetite for just combining them all into one goal about fulfilling your responsibilities and then coming up with separate goals?
Well, I personally like it the way it is, and especially for new commissioners. I mean, they can, they can look at, each of those goals and decide, which area that they may have expertise in, or they may have a particular liking for. They can zero in on it very easily and decide, that I have a lot of experience working on fees in a parks and recreation environment. So I want to be part of the committee that's gonna, develop specific objectives and, come up with some, recommendations and so on and so forth. So I think splitting it up the way we've done it, or the way, it has been previously done, to me, I think totally makes sense.
Chair Laguna. You're on mute.
didn't pull the mute button. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, so I guess, well, I do think that having a series of goals is definitely good, even if we're breaking stuff up into the objectives. But what actually resonated with me from Commissioner Green's comments was the fact that if you just look at it, right, it would seem like these goals should be a little bit more kind of equal in size, when in reality, goal one is kind of the majority of the, I mean, if you look at the actual work plan itself, the goal one has, what is it, like 5 objectives, and within the 5 objectives, there's like, 12 or so, maybe more actual activities, while the remainder of the couple of goals make up another 12, right? So I think from that standpoint, and once again, I don't know exactly whether I would suggest kind of lumping it all into one, but I do think that we maybe need to be a little bit more, I don't know, I guess a little more thoughtful, right, about some of these goals, and especially because I do think there are some of these goals that, or some potential new goals, let's just say, because we haven't even started talking about anything new we're going to be working on, that I think, should be at the goal level. And I think things like, and not to get into the brainstorm of that, but things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, right, need to be more front and center, right, and should potentially line up as a goal. But right now, it may potentially be falling under that goal one, right? The advise and make recommendations. So I think we should just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. Perfect. Good. So sorry. You think we should just?
No, so I think maybe what we should do, and so I think we should go through these goals. Let's figure out if there are other goals that we want to add in, and then we can figure out how to kind of break them out, I guess was my suggestion.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, I was going to suggest the same thing. Let's go through the goals, and then let's look at what are the new goals. And then depending on the new goals, does that then cause us to go back and modify the previous goals, right? Does that work for folks? Okay, so moving to goal 4. Now, this one was one where there weren't any objectives. Hannah, goal 4. Great. So this is amending the bylaws as necessary. So this may not be something where you want a specific goal on this, right? It might be part of a new goal, right? Where you have to amend the bylaws. Or,
I think this was accomplished. I think there was something specific about the goal, that got done.
Okay,
And
so this may be one, Commissioner O'Kelly, this may be one then based on your knowledge of how it was first developed that we could eliminate.
Right, yes.
Does anybody have any objection to that?
No.
Okay, great. So let's consider that eliminated. Let's move to goal 5. So goal 5 is to increase, and I'm assuming this was created, purposefully and was specific to a need at that time, increasing the awareness of the San Mateo County Parks Foundation. So is this something that is still of importance to the commission? Comments?
I do think it is, because I think the Parks Foundation has been very helpful, to the department in terms of raising money, and funding, specific projects. And I think, the one that certainly, comes to mind was, when they partly funded a shuttle service, a bus service that picked up kids from, various part of the country, just to expose them to the parks and so on and so forth. And I think that the Parks Foundation has continued, to fund county park department projects, capital projects and programmatic projects. And so I think it's something that we need to keep, because if we make county residents more aware and they support, the department starts to benefit, and the public ultimately decides to benefit. So I would strongly recommend that we keep it.
Okay, Commissioner Green and then Chair Laguna.
I don't know if Michelle Beasley is on, but I would like us to ask her if it's valuable for the foundation to be named as a goal of the commission in this way at this time. Like, the foundation has evolved a lot over the years. So that would be one note. And then the other is I likewise super thankful for all of the foundation's efforts and partnership and support of the department and the people who use our parks. I think, I don't know, but I suspect the foundation would agree it's like in furtherance of the goals that both the foundation and the department is trying to achieve. And so to me, this feels more like an objective or an action that would help advance like the greater good. To me, the foundation is not in and of itself the good. It is wonderful and so thankful, but to me, it feels a little bit, again, like just at a different level. I'm not coming up with the right word. Just like a different elevation.
Right, that it's maybe not as broad. When you think about that, it could be under, and we'll talk about this next, goal 6, which is about advancing, social media and publicity and support and attendance. It could be, it's similar to that. The foundation could be
support and attendance are very different from the media attention itself and like the foundation itself as an entity. One's more like outcomes and one's more just partnership, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway,
okay, thank you. Chair Laguna.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts on it are, one, when it said increase awareness, it felt like it was making sure that the commission, and once again, if any of you guys know exactly what was intended by the statement itself, right? It kind of feels to me like this was, hey, let's have the commission do what we can to be able to make sure folks know about the San Mateo County Parks Foundation, put more money into the San Mateo County Parks Foundation, and really, have more folks understand that this is a critical fundraising arm for the broader San Mateo County Parks system. I think, and once again, I have been and still am on the board of the San Mateo County Parks Foundation myself. I would feel like at this point, right? Obviously, awareness is always great, right? The more that we can make people aware of this as a fundraising entity, fantastic, right? I would say just kind of having a perspective on kind of both sides, and I would love Director Calderon, you could also weigh in on this one as well, right? It would feel to me like one of the things that the San Mateo County Parks Foundation needs right now is how best to leverage that fundraising arm in conjunction with the Parks Department. And I know we've made a lot of strides, but that feels like kind of one of the big things. And Director Calderon, I don't know if I'm off on that, but that feels like one of the big areas of focus. Not saying that we need to, as a commission, need to focus on it. I just feel like that's kind of where the Parks Foundation is in terms of their maturity, where we need to figure out how best to kind of link the foundation with the Parks Department so that we can unlock more opportunities.
Chair Laguna, would you like me to kind of address that?
Yeah, I mean, if you could, because obviously you have a pretty good perspective on it as well.
certainly I'd be happy to. Actually, Michelle and I had a wonderful conversation yesterday. We meet every other week, and one of the things that we are working on is exactly what you just said, which is really developing a long-term vision for how the department and the commission, how the department and the foundation will identify, needs and priorities. I think there have been several different strategies implemented in the past, including having the foundation fund some portions of capital projects and other types of programs. And I think right now, what I see is, and Michelle, I don't want to speak for her as I don't think she's on here, but I think what she was saying was it's very much in line with what the foundation's focused on right now. I see the foundation playing a huge role in our ability to provide more equitable services. And so we were spending a lot of time talking about field trips for kids and field trips for residents of disadvantaged communities. And that's something that I see us working on long term. But I do think having a like a multi-year vision is helpful because it allows Michelle to start going for grants and complying with those types of requirements. But I do think more coordination and vision is always helpful.
Commissioner Mane?
Thanks for bringing us together, at least, this little special meeting that we have. And we're going through a lot of detailed things that's really beneficial, not just for present day, but for future. And as we emerge out of this, I kind of wanted to piggyback on why I came on and one of the reasons I enjoy being on this commission, and a lot of work that I helped put through and pave, not only when I did my time as chair, but when I learned from our past chairs and our current commissioners. The time I was able to work on a few things with Commissioner Okello, and anytime a commissioner is on or sits or is a sitting board member, what do they want? What do they want to accomplish? They want to strengthen the commission that they sit on. And before all of this, COVID and, world upside down, I thought we were moving in the right place in increasing awareness in what we do, what it is we do as a commission, and what it is we do as commissioners, and how we try to help boost our commission and try to interact with other sitting commissions, and how can we increase the Parks Commission to be the best that it can be by increasing visits and hikes at different county parks. And so one of the things that I was able to do with Commissioner Okello and the projects that we were assigned and responsibilities, 1.1, 1.2, and the different sections, is how can we pave a way where we can raise awareness for parks that say, hey world, hey San Mateo County, there is a commission that exists. It's called the Parks Commission. There's a lot of neat things that happen, from things at Coyote Point. And so I think getting to my point is, as we emerge and in hopes that, this is all over, hopefully by this summer, maybe we can all have a reunion. Maybe it's trying to get back to say, hey, let's make first things first as being safe, but how can we get back on track of where Commissioner Okello and I and other commissioners had worked well in creating a boost for parks? And I think I can address this to Director Calderon. How can we maybe get back on track of that?
Commissioner Mane, I do think that's really the ultimate goal of today, and certainly why we brought Donna in to assist with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I just want to acknowledge that it has been really difficult being on a commission as well, that virtual meetings, just how our worlds have been turned upside down has definitely had an impact on our ability. I think I'm speaking personally to feel like we're as effective, right? But hopefully, again, this process where I loved what you said about, you want to be able to accomplish some things, right? That you did in the past. So what are you passionate about? What is it that why did you raise your hand when you were asked to participate as a commissioner? What was it that you wanted to do? And so to keep that in mind as we talk about, goals and objectives. Commissioner O'Kelly, you have your hand up.
Yeah, and let's not forget that we can talk about the pandemic, but we can also talk about the fact that the Parks and Recreation Department not too long ago was dissolved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then
True.
it got recreated.
Right.
And so I think some of us were joining the commission at that point where the Parks Department was trying to find its feet.
Yeah.
So from that traumatic experience, of course, and then the pandemic comes along, and so we are still in that process of really trying to reestablish our feet.
Right.
That's
such an important.
And so this is a very good process, because I don't think we've had a retreat at least in the time that I've been here. So this is a very good moment. It's a very good process, and I'm glad we're having it, and I'm glad we're having this discussion.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so it sounds to me like there might be some opportunity with this goal to incorporate it into something maybe more encompassing, like strengthening partnerships with the Parks Foundation, others, or maybe increasing awareness of park programs through an operation or whatever, through the foundation. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not being very articulate, but it sounds like there might be opportunities to package this with other things. Go ahead, Commissioner O'Kelly.
Yeah, I think there are things that directly link with the Board of Supervisors. We can't go to the Board of Supervisors, and recommend to them that we have this relationship with the Parks Foundation. Because it doesn't fall within our framework of responsibility. But I like the thought of expanding this particular goal and looking at it as a way of increasing partnerships that are going to benefit, parks and recreation in San Mateo County. So it may be a partnership with the foundation, and some commissioners may remember that at one point we convened a meeting with all the parks and recreation commissions in the county of San Mateo. And the intent was to tell them who we are, get to know who they are, share with them what the county Parks and Rec Department was doing, and so on and so forth. And we were hoping that we would establish partnerships with them that can help advance all the things that the county is doing in parks and recreation. So I would like to humbly suggest that perhaps we could expand this particular goal, and instead of specifically referencing the Parks and Recreation Foundation, we can talk about just partnerships in general. And in the specific objectives, we can have the Parks and Foundation, we could have other parks and recreation, we can have cities, and so on and so forth.
So Commissioner O'Kelly, thank you for that. So if we were to say, we want to explore and strengthen partnerships, what would be the purpose? What is the kind of end in mind when you think about what's the benefit of strengthening, exploring and strengthening partnerships?
Because we talked earlier about equity, and it's become we've done a visitor study. The Parks Department has done a visitor study, And there are certain parts of this county that are not utilizing the parks and recreation resources that the county has.
Okay.
And so establishing partnership with all these other entities with the purpose of making everybody in the county be able to benefit, be able to take advantage of the parks and recreation resources that exist in county. Because the fact of the matter is that through their property taxes, they're paying for it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so correct me, but I have I've written down explore and strengthen partnerships to expand equity and access to county parks.
Exactly, that captures it well.
Are there any? How does that resonate with folks? Other comments from commissioners?
Yes, I like that. And I guess I hope, but I would love to hear thoughts from others. So equity in and of itself, it's a wonderful thing. I think what we mean by that is equitable utilization, like that more people who don't today use the parks for whatever inequitable barrier reasons get to the parks and are able to use them and feel welcome in them, like any number of those things. So I guess I hope for greater specificity around what we mean by equity. And some of that will come out of the equity action planning, the external piece from staff. So, I just certainly want to keep it high level as that comes together. But I just think the utilization piece seems like the core of the issue, like who actually comes and feels welcome.
This is it. Okay. So Commissioner, with that in mind, then I'm trying to modify based on your comments. So explore and strengthen partnerships to expand equitable utilization and access to county parks.
I think that would be great if others like it. I think that would be a nice step in the specific direction. Thank you.
How do others feel? Chair Laguna?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think we do need to have certain language that kind of that up levels it, I guess, from maybe an objective, as I think we might have had it in the prior work plan, to an actual goal, especially given the fact that it feels like for the Parks Department, most of the metrics have to do with some of that, right? I do want to make sure that there's some alignment there. So yeah, I think that works. The wording's fine. We can also put a number of different objectives in there, everything from some of the stuff we're doing with the Parks Foundation to a number of other things like working through or understanding or providing recommendations for that equity plan. I think is going to be a big one. But that's obviously once we get down to the individual objectives beneath the goal.
Okay. Great. Okay, so if everybody is good with that, I think we have a new goal, revised goal 5. Great. Let's move to our final goal before talking about new goals. This one is increase publicity and support attendance for county parks events in all 5 districts. Comments on this one? Does this resonate with folks? Does this feel like a goal?
I guess this feels to me like an objective, like it's specific about this feels like more measurable. And so I guess potentially it could, I think the intention here is for it, and I think Commissioner Alcala, correct me if I'm wrong, if I recall you talking about this one before, it's about like putting some impetus on us as commissioners to be, like vocal, visible representatives and of the parks, and encouraging and putting it on us to promote events and things like that. So maybe that maybe there's a goal for us as like an internal goal for us as commissioners, everything about like internal and external goals, like for us to be, you know, active promoters and supporters of the department and foundation's efforts. And then like this would be a way that we could achieve that would be to attend and promote events.
Yeah, and the other thing, and Commissioner may have intimated it in his earlier comments, is that we realize that, you know, other commissions don't know who we are, what we do. And so I think Commissioner Manet and I went to the Youth Commission and made a presentation. And in the process, we just asked them questions, whether they knew this park or they knew that park, they knew that park, and they didn't. They didn't realize what existed and was available to them in the county. And I think out of that effort as well, we tried coming up with a joint project with the Arts Commission. So we went and spoke with the Arts Commission. So just getting to know all the other commissions in the county and what it is that they're doing and having them know we exist, you know, was really part of this. A sort of, you know, is not as clearly written to include that, but you know, that's really what we are attempting to do. We're here, but people don't know we exist.
Commissioner Merrilees.
Yeah, I don't like this goal, and I think we ought to either revise it or get rid of it. And
Okay.
here's why.
Okay.
Increase publicity in all 5 districts. Now, is that supervisorial districts or parks districts? Because they don't match. All 5 supervisorial districts, most of the parks are in District 3. So I guess I would think a better goal would be to support attendance from residents of all 5 supervisorial districts, support attendance in parks. Because, yeah, like I say, most of the parks are kind of consolidated in one area, or much of the park space is. And there are some parks that don't need publicity and attendance support. For instance, like Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, we don't need to increase the publicity. People know about it and they come. And we're on the verge of having to restrict attendance on some days. I hope we don't, but we certainly don't need to increase publicity. So yeah, I think this one is not as clean as it could be if we rewrote it.
Okay, thank you for that. So going back to then Commissioner Green's point that potentially the purpose of this was that kind of the overarching, the broad goal is that commissioners, as part of their responsibilities, are active promoters, right? And potentially this then could be an objective, right, on how you could be active promoters. I don't know, what is your reaction to that? What is the commissioner's reactions to that? In terms of having a goal that is about your role as active promoters of the department resources, however you want to say.
Yeah, I like the part about promoting the department resources and our partners. I'm less concerned with folks' awareness of the commission itself, although, you know, have some ambitions for the body, but to me, it's really about the system. And so I would be on board for something like that. And to the point that Commissioner Merrilees was just making about promoting, I think what you were saying overlaps with what we were just saying back in goal 5 about utilization and attendance. So I think that part may be covered already. And what you're talking about, Donna, would be about our goals for ourselves. And
okay, so again, any other commissioners want to weigh in? Do we want to add then a goal as to commissioners are active promoters of the department and resources, associated resources, or something like that?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Do I have another hand? Commissioner Green? Or is your hand still up from before?
Sorry, yeah, I must be double clicking, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, we can definitely
So-
wordsmith. Go ahead, Commissioner
So
O'Connell.
so I think, the more I think about it, so the more I agree with Commissioner Mirrlees. Perhaps we should just drop this one. And because to some extent, I think number 5, as Commissioner Green suggested,
Okay,
cover some of the things that we need to do. In terms of individual commissioner responsibilities, I think we can leave it up to them.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's their individual responsibility.
Okay. Is there agreement then that we would take out number 6?
I think.
Any objections? Okay, great. So we have finished the existing goals, and now I want to open up the discussion. We'll go to the next slide. Just as you were reflecting on the existing work plan and kind of what you want to accomplish as commissioners, were there other areas or goals that you were interested in exploring?
For me, it's in the objectives, I think.
Okay, okay. We can definitely, we're going to get to that. I just wanted to, again, are there any kind of overarching goals that you think we're missing from these 5 that have been identified or modified?
Well, I guess I do have one question to the commissioners. I mean, something that I'm interested in. So maybe if I could get some input about whether you think it's more of a goal or an objective. But one of the things in the mission of the commission we saw on the slide at the beginning of that set was about transparency, which is something I think I hear, in our stalwart public commenters, an appetite for greater access and ease of access to information. So that's something I want on the table, but I'm not sure if that's a goal in and of itself, or if that speaks under like the, goal 1, management, maintenance and operations of the system. I think it is a little bit different because it's more about what we do as a body and the service we perform, but it could go either way. So would love to do what the group prefers.
Chair Laguna?
I was actually going to bring up the same thing as I was kind of taking down notes of one, our job to be an advisory body, and the other one to be a public transparent forum, right? And I feel like we definitely, would have some work to do, I would say, in terms of providing that transparency. And once again, we've had a number of different issues that I think have kept us from doing that over the last couple of years. But I actually was going to bring that up as well. I don't know if it's its own kind of separate goal, but I do feel like we need to address it one way or another. So I'm open as to whether we add it as an objective or underneath one of these other ones, or put it as a goal. But that was one of the things I did want to bring up.
Any other discussion on?
Somebody explain to me when you say transparency, what exactly do you mean?
So for me, the thing I want to accomplish is to enhance transparency. And that includes, in my mind, some of it would be great to have more specific information in presentation materials. So like when we talk about measures, to have the targets, and I know that, not speaking ill of the presentation we just received, which was an introduction to performance measures and targets or measures, but like to have the quantitative information out for the public, because our role is advisory and it's impossible to advise to the board if we have no context for performance. So that'll be one example, to have better, record keeping and maintenance. So like when our public says they can't find presentations published in advance and they're not associated with the agenda items, like that kind of administrative transparency seems important, that we have there are some like norms I'd like to establish about when things are going to the board, kind of what I was saying before, that they come as action items before a commission, so that we can perform our function. So calendar transparency, like those kinds of things are some examples of things that I think are desirable across the board and achievable and serve our mission.
Chair Lugano, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Green nailed it in terms. I was thinking actually in terms of, yes, the documentation, the process, right, by which we will provide a forum for things, potentially before they go to the Board of Supervisors, right? So that not only we get the chance to weigh in, but the public gets a chance to weigh in as well. And just really making sure that we have kind of our process a little bit more down than maybe we've had in the past. And there have been some efforts, right, that I know the Parks Department has started to pull together. I know when I first started meeting with them prior to the beginning of this year, we really wanted to start to kind of publish out, and I think you saw it in Hannah's presentation, the potential kind of discussion topics or updates, right? And start having those maybe a little bit in advance, so folks, don't have to just wait till a week before to know exactly what's going on and those kinds of things, or at a minimum, at least the commission, right, will know what's coming and when, and having a better sequence, I guess, of when we weigh in on things versus when they go to the board and when they get decided on.
So it appears to me, that then we need to describe the objective within, I think, a larger umbrella of the relationship between the commission and the department. And the whole idea of, making sure that the documents are availed to us or are availed to the public within a specific time frame, those are things I think we can deal with within that umbrella, because there may be some other issues, that we need to grapple with between the commission and the department, and so transparency may just be, maybe just one of them. And for me, it would also be interesting to find out how other commissions within the county, what standard do they have in the area of transparency? How is their information, or the information pertinent to their purpose, how is that information being disseminated, to the public? And do they have different standards? What's their standard? Is there a county standard? And is our department
Best practices? Yeah, no, totally.
Is our department meeting those standards or not? And if our department is, then hey, and those standards are too low, then we can recommend to the Board of Supervisors that we need to raise the standards. We should have this expectation in terms of how the county relates to the public. So
I can tell you, just go ahead.
I would describe it differently.
Okay. Just, giving you my experience with commissions, for instance, what we get put on is put on the Veterans Commission agenda is items that we ask for that are associated with meeting our objectives, right? So we're asking for certain things to be agendized at certain times to move forward our progress on our goals and objectives, right? So we're not, and again, I don't know if that's helpful, but
Donna, it would be helpful to know, in your experience, has there been something that has been impossible to be agendized when you've asked for it?
Impossible to be agendized? I don't think that we've ever asked for anything that hasn't been agendized, but again,
Okay. I was just
everything
curious. Thank you.
Yeah, everything that we ask for is really associated with the work plan that we've developed and the specific objectives that are associated with that, right? Certainly things come up where, we may have a speaker that comes and talks to us about an issue that we want to get involved in and that we want the board to take a legislative stance on. And so we would do that. Maybe that's not in the work plan, right? But there's an overarching goal that is to support veterans and their families, and that ends up coming, being part of supporting that, right? Anyway.
Thank you. That's so helpful.
So when you, it sounds like there's some work that you want to do in terms of transparency and information sharing. I mean, is that just something where you're going to work with the department on?
Yeah, I mean, like if we're seeking goal language, I guess the way I would float it, and I think we agree these are like rough ideas that will get wordsmithed by the chair and brought back. Is that how it'll work? But to me, it's like work with the department to enhance transparency. That to me is the goal.
Any other comment on that? Is that something that can be an objective?
Well, I think that
it seems very specific.
Oh, I mean, it's a whole half of our mission. I don't know. I mean, to me, there are a number of ways we can go about that, like Chair Laguna was saying, and the handful of things that I enumerated. So I think we have, but defer, I mean, that objective would be in service of, like, can somebody float goal language? I'm totally open to that too.
Chair Laguna, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I would say, as I've been thinking about it, right? One, what Commissioner Green said about it being kind of half our broader kind of mission, right? So I would assume it would be a bylaw item, right? Second of all, when you're talking about some of these goals earlier, right? They're broad and long term, right? I don't think providing the transparency is like a one-year thing. I don't think that providing transparency is something that we can, add a couple of documents onto the website and then all of a sudden it's done, right? I personally think that it's something that we should continue to strive to work on, right? And it feels to me like maybe that is, and once again, if folks have varying opinions, that's fine too. We could put it as objectives, but it feels to me broad enough and something that should be kind of part of our DNA or part of the way that we work as a commission, that we're constantly trying to provide that transparency, however we need to do it, which may or may not be a certain set of objectives, within a 1 year time frame or a 2 year time frame.
Interestingly enough, what I've seen in terms of transparency is it's typically, and this commission hasn't gone through the exercise, but typically there's values, there's a mission, vision, values discussion that's done prior to developing a strategic plan. And transparency would be a value, just like it's already in your mission. So in your mission statement, it says that you're representing, et cetera, related to open space, parks and recreation, providing a public and transparent forum on items agendized for its consideration in coordination with Parks Director. So it's already in your mission,
yes,
right?
It is. And now I think what you're hearing from at least myself and Chair Laguna is a desire for that to become part of what the work that we do more consciously. And so either as a goal or as an objective, I think we'd like to see it as part of the work plan. And so if somebody has language for an overarching goal under which that can fall, great. Or could we for now put it as a new goal and then wordsmith it? Either is fine, but I think it's part of the work we want to do.
So I have enhanced transparency, or go ahead, Commissioner McKellar.
I don't think the wording in the mission is addressing the issue that Commissioner Green and Chair Laguna are talking about, because the word in the mission is fairly simple, that our meetings are going to be open.
Mm-hmm.
agendas are gonna be out within the required the required 3-day time frame, so the public gets to know.
Mhm.
And so the public gets to know what the commission is gonna be talking about. And so we're not gonna bring an item and discuss it at the very last minute and so on and so forth. So I think when I see that word within a mission, a commission mission statement, that's what I think about. We're gonna establish a public forum that is transparent. It makes reference to a forum, and the forum is basically our meetings.
Correct.
People are gonna know way in advance what it is we're gonna talk about. Okay, we can talk about the details, but perhaps all the documentation that is attached to everything that we're going to be talking about should also be available to the public. And if that has not been, then that's something that obviously needs to get corrected. But I presume those items have been available, generally to the public. And another example, for instance, this particular meeting, if you go to the Parks and Rec Commission website, the meeting is not listed as a date. You have all the dates where the commission is gonna be, the dates the commission is gonna be meeting, but this particular meeting is not listed. And so the way you get to this meeting, you've got to get to the commission agendas and click agenda, and then you're gonna see this meeting. Okay, so a member of the public going through the system may not be able to know that the commission is actually having a meeting today. So things like that, are things that I think we can fix. And should we commission spend some time, working on it? Yes, we should. So should it be expressed as a goal? Most certainly.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that we want increasing transparency to be a goal of some sort. We want to add to that in order to, what the purpose is. And we'll let's see, we can add that as goal number 6, but it sounds like we need to wordsmith it a bit. Does that work for folks?
Yeah, I think that's where we are.
Okay. Great. Okay, so again, looks like we're back to 6 goals. We modified goal 5. To explore and strengthen partnerships to expand equitable utilization and access to county parks. And goal 6 is now increase transparency, ... Okay, so now, is there any other goals that you had considered or thought about when you reviewed the work plan that you were interested in adding or discussing? No others? Okay, let's move to the next slide. So now we're going to be looking at objectives and activities. And just to let you know, in terms of the time, we probably are not going to get to everything that was on our agenda, but I think it's more important that we have, as much time as we need to discuss each of these areas. We can always come back to it, or there can be homework for the commission and the subcommittees. So when we talk about objectives and activities, just be thinking about when we, Commissioner Okello, you had a question.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
We've been meeting for 2 hours. Could we take a 3 to 5 minute break?
Absolutely,
Just
absolutely.
3 to 5 minute break, so we can walk away from our desks and
okay, absolutely.
Drink some water or drink some coffee.
Okay.
So just 3 to 5 minutes, please.
Okay, so what time is it now? It is 6:12. Let's come back at 6:17. Does that work?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I'm muting all mics at this time. Okay, we have less than a minute left.
Okay, I'm seeing people return. Chair Laguna, you'll let us know when you think we're ready to continue.
Sure.
Folks don't have their cameras on, so I'm not sure if they're back. Oh, there's
Yeah.
Commissioner. Oh, there we go. Great.
There we go.
So nice to see you. Okay, terrific. Let's continue. And thanks, Commissioner Okello, for that reminder. I tend to be a taskmaster, so I appreciate it. So when we look at, next we're going to look at the objectives and activities. And so just things to keep in mind is, what progress have you made on the objectives? Where have you run into challenges? Looking forward, what objectives and activities should be included in your work plan? And then are there things that have been included that you are no longer needed? They may have been accomplished or they're no longer relevant or priorities. So let's get started with the very first one. Next slide. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here. What I did was I listed the objective. So this is under goal number 1. This is the objective. And then to the right-hand side is all of the activities associated or actions that were associated with that specific objective. So understanding the part and support the Parks Department's management and operational priorities, major maintenance, capital infrastructure improvements, resource protection, and equity and accessibility / IEDA. Chair Laguna, question.
Yes. So just given the time that we had, I know you had mentioned that, hey, let's just try to get through this, right? I mean, for the purposes of it's 6:20 right now, do you think it will be more beneficial to just make sure we get all of the objectives lined up, or are you saying that, hey, even if we just get through like 2 of the objectives but all of the activities, that's better than just getting the full list of objectives?
A great question, and I would offer that to the other commissioners. We can certainly go through the objectives first and then say, is this still relevant? And then we can, if we get through the objectives, then we can backtrack and start going through the action items. Would that be helpful?
Well, and the only reason I'm saying that might be a good way to do it is because I think the other piece to this is we also need to line up the subcommittee members, right?
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
and those for the most part, I believe, I don't know if the subcommittee members are lined up at the activity level or the objective level, or maybe it's both. But I do think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so yeah, let's absolutely do that. Let's leave at least 15 minutes at the end before 7. So at 6:45, wherever we are, we will move to the subcommittee discussion, because I think what will happen then is we'll look at who's on the existing subcommittees or has been assigned to a specific item, whether or not we still want to keep that. And then there'll be probably homework then for the subcommittees, maybe to take these items, the objectives, and work on, new action items associated with that. Does that work for people? Does that work for folks?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's start. We're going to then we'll look at the objectives, right? So that's the part on the left-hand side. Oh, Commissioner Okello.
So could I offer another suggestion?
Sure.
Let's review all the objectives, and because it's going to take us a little time to do that, and then propose that we consider establishing a working plan committee, that's going to continue the work that we started today. And I know we can't take any specific action now regarding that, since the plan was not to do that. And it's certainly not on the agenda to establish a subcommittee to work on it, but it could certainly be suggested, and then we can take the action and move it on. But let's do what we can do without feeling hurried. But the last thing that we should do is definitely, suggest that.
Okay. Okay, so when we get to the subcommittee discussion, we can determine how the rest of the work, the remaining work in the work plan gets accomplished.
Correct,
Whether it's
yes.
done through the subcommittees or whether it's done through another type of a structure. Okay, great.
Yeah,
And we also have the follow-up meeting next Thursday as well. So if we need to kind of put more time or agendize that, I think we can also work through that if needed as well.
great,
Okay.
yes.
Great. Okay, are we ready? Okay, so 1.1 objective, and understand and support the Parks Department's management and operational priorities, major maintenance, capital, infrastructure improvements, resource protection, and equity and accessibility. Does that still sound like an objective we want to keep?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
Any objections? Okay, let's move on to 1.2. So promote parks programs and efforts that promote the health, well-being, and safety of county residents, as well as equitable and diverse access to the county parks. This sounds very familiar to me. You know, we've got the partnerships new goal. This objective feels like some crossover, right?
Yeah, that may now, maybe this objective would live under there. I mean, you can see in the action steps, this was really about presentations to commission, like giving forum for that. So maybe that's a good goal where just the action of calendaring things can live. And then I think the exception there, sorry, this gets into the actions, but is around the information to be provided. And I think it's a question about whether that's the best use of department capacity at this time. So, but I like the idea of moving this objective over to that goal.
Yeah, I think that there's some synergy between those two. I mean, it's, you know, it could be just combining them. This is an objective. So just want you to think about that. Again, the objective, the new objective is promoting or exploring and strengthening partnerships to expand equitable utilization and access to county parks. Okay, just a thought, but for now, we want to keep this. Correct?
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. No objections? Okay. Okay. Hannah, we'll move on to 1.3. Commissioner Merrily, do you want to opine on this? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, we may need to go further. We may need to continue some sort of subcommittee that's based on this in the future.
Okay. So this has not gone away.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. Okay. You'll have a chance whether or not to volunteer to stay on the committee or not, right? Or be the point person. Okay, so we're good with keeping this? Yes, okay. Let's move to 1.4. Support feasible and strategic park property acquisitions and open space development. Seems like that may still be relevant.
I think so. I think we always have to discuss this.
Right, okay.
I agree.
Okay. Any disagreement? Okay. Number 1.5, Hannah, next. Develop and deliver commission updates and recommendations to the board.
Super important.
Okay. Something we keep. Any objections?
Absolutely keep.
We keep. Okay.
I guess just one question I have about that one is like, is that a thing we do in and of itself, or like that's what we do with the stuff that comes through commission? Like, I agree, that's a thing we absolutely need to do. Is it its own objective?
Thoughts about that? So I think Heather, what you're saying is, does this get incorporated as just part of what we do, or is this, we keep this as a specific?
I think it's like
Object.
the last step of everything that comes through. I
Mhm.
think, sorry, could you go back one, please? Sorry. Presentation mode, right? Develop. I mean, it's funny looking at that action that's under here. It's about the budget. That's like very specific, but generally speaking, every time we take an action item, that's what we do.
I like leaving it because when we're doing our monthly work, it's nice to remember that that's kind of, that we have to do that. That we always have to have that in the back of our mind, that we want to.
Maybe that's where I'm just thinking about like the actions that would be specific just to that. And I guess we do have that like annual update that's
You
expected,
do.
like what we did. So like that would be an item unto itself. That would be an update for the board. That's not necessarily like tied to any of the other work we do.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that the board does require an annual update, right? So this would be where you would add that as an action.
Now,
Okay,
it's not
Sounds-
being added anywhere else.
right. So
That was gonna be my
but
question.
it's-
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's perfect, because that is something that needs to be done. So sounds like we'll keep it, and we'll, remember that we're going to add the annual plan report to the board for this item. Okay, so now we're moving to 2.1. And this is develop recommendations for comprehensive fee strategy for county parks. Is this something we
Yeah,
want to keep?
the
This is-
background
this-
on that was there's a consultant, Nicholas, you'd have to provide the latest, like a consultant was doing an analysis and they were going to present whenever that was ready. So I think this is still relevant.
In progress.
Yeah, I don't know
So.
if it's
yeah,
happening this year.
Commissioner Green, so that study was put on hold and was put on hold, I believe, back in 2019, 2018. And current fee related matters are being addressed by the Board of Supervisors subcommittee of Supervisor Groom and Supervisor Horsley. So they are taking point on those conversations at this time. But certainly preparation of any type of study, we're happy to make sure that gets presented to the commission.
Sorry, so are you saying
Commis-
that the development of the strategy is out of the department's hands? Like if it's already with the board, then maybe we don't have a role and this goes away?
To be perfectly honest, I think we're still feeling our way through that. We've never worked on a subcommittee of the board for a matter like this. So I think we're all kind of trying to establish what that process is, but certainly this is coming out of the conversation that occurred at the board level regarding the Mariposa program, which you'll recall was presented to the commission. So I would need to really have that conversation with probably the two board members and the county manager to understand what the expectations are for next steps, to better understand if this is already in the board's court, or if the thought is that it would come back after the board's had a chance to mold it.
Yeah, so could we like kind of defer on that one to your recommendation, or at least hear your recommendation and kind of put it as a maybe for now? And if it's not, if our role is to advise the board and it's not useful for us to advise the board on this matter, like, I don't know.
Sounds like
What do you guys think?
Yeah, we have a couple of hands up. So Commissioner Merrily is followed by Chair Laguna.
Yeah, I hope we keep this, and I hope we always speak out about this, regardless of what the Board of Supervisors does, and regardless of what the Parks Department does. We have a duty to advocate for parks users, and this is something that might change with the times. There may be times when we need to raise fees. There may be times that we can lower fees, and I hope this is always in the back of our minds, that fees can limit use, and we, I think, want to try and allow as much use for people that don't have money for fees as possible. So that I think that should be an ongoing discussion going
Okay.
on for many years.
Okay. Chair Laguna.
Yeah, so two things. So one, yes, as Commissioner Marilee's pointed out, fees are tied to kind of equity and kind of making sure we can get everyone to be able to enjoy the park. So that's a given. The other thing I was thinking about is if the Parks Department is making a recommendation, regardless of kind of how it bounces around the Board of Supervisors and whatever, I definitely want to be able to weigh in on it, right? So I think assuming that this is something that will come back to the Parks Department for recommendation, I do think that it should be part of our work for the coming year. Now, I think to Commissioner Green's point, Nicholas, you're going to need to kind of advise us on that and whether or not it is going to kind of come back into your court to be able to provide that recommendation. But if so, I definitely would love for the commission to weigh in on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So it sounds like we're going to keep this in. Commissioner O'Kello.
I also do think that to the extent that we are very much interested in this, I think it's our obligations to keep tabs on what the board subcommittee is doing, because I'm sure they're going to be reporting to the board on a regular basis as to their work. And so if we have that strong interest, then we can monitor the progress, their progress, and so on and so forth. So by the time we feel the need that we have to make some recommendations or we have to react, we at least have that background as to how they got there.
Sounds like that could be an action item, right?
Yes, so there'll be a subcommittee perhaps, so I need a designated person.
Okay.
Okay,
So it sounds like we'll keep that one. Okay, let's move to 3.1. So this one is, I'm sorry, I didn't put a number on that. This one is ensure citizen access to fish and game propagation funds. Is that something we want to keep? Thoughts? Chair Laguna.
I guess to Nicholas or Hannah, like, is there access to the funds? Is this something that requires action or attention from the commission? We had that one commenter one time, and it seems like we answered his questions.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Green, can you maybe clarify the question?
There was just like, I mean, this is an objective. I think like this is an objective we fulfill by existing. Like we provide, like our objective is to ensure access to these funds, and then the action we take is to provide a forum for questions about it. I mean, we had talked about doing a readoption of a citizens advisory committee. That doesn't feel, I haven't heard anything about demand for that in a very long time. Have you, I think as priorities go, this feels relatively lower priority in terms of like a problem to solve, or does that sound right to you?
I would say, given that since I've been with the department going on 4 years, the only time I've heard anyone from the public bring it up was the instance in which you're referring to. With that said, so I would say from that regard, it is probably a lower priority than some of the other issues that have been discussed. With that said, I do know that our performance measure has a desire to spend some of these funds to assist with education programs geared towards students who are attending Title I schools or maybe coming from disadvantaged communities. So we will want to start accessing those funds, and those access to those funds would come by way of a recommendation from the commission to the Board of Supervisors and approval by the board. The other thing I would say is I was also approached recently by the San Mateo Resource Conservation District, who has accessed these funds in the past for some really important fish passage projects, and they will likely be coming back for that. So it's been quiet, but likely going to pick up here shortly.
So I guess maybe hearing that, I might suggest that we modify the objectives to say support access to fish and game propagation funds in furtherance of department objectives, e.g. like equity and access and conservation, like the things you're mentioning, so that our role is not just ensuring that the access exists, but that our recommendations align with the things we're trying to achieve.
Okay, and I think I have 3 hands up. So Chair Laguna, followed by Commissioner Mariles, followed by Commissioner Okello.
Yeah, I think between Director Calderon and Commissioner Green, I think you guys answered my question. When I first saw the work plan, I thought it was a little odd because in the year I'd been on the commission, we'd never talked about it. But when I saw the presentation that Hannah gave a little bit earlier, it did seem to feel like it was one of the top 10 metrics that you guys are using to kind of drive how successful the Parks Department is. And if there are, I guess, decisions that have to be made or recommendations that have to be made that will be coming in this year, then yeah, I think we should keep it. Albeit, yeah, maybe we change the activity that goes beneath it, or as well as maybe wordsmith the objective itself.
Commissioner Mariles?
Yes, I would take out the word citizen. In the past,
Okay.
money has been going to the Coastside Fishing Club, and they, get tens of thousands of salmon into the system every year using that money, which is great. But the money doesn't have to go to a citizens group. It could go to the Parks Department, or it could go to some other agencies which promote ideas that we agree with. So I think it'd be nice to weigh in on that. I think that's an important thing to do, but it doesn't have to go to a citizens group. So I would take that word out.
And Commissioner Okello.
Commissioner Miller, thanks for making that distinction, because I think the commission's concern was that the same group was getting the funds every year. And so the desire was to make it known that those funds do exist and what their purpose was, and sort of have at least multiple entities, submit requests for those funds, so there could be some sort of discussion. But I would agree with you. I mean, removing the word citizen would probably be a good idea.
Okay. So I think the suggestion we have on the table from a couple of commissioners is to remove the word citizen, and then it sounds like we can be more specific in the action items. Comment, does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. And now moving to goal 4, which we removed, right? We no longer have goal 4. So we no longer have an objective. Let's move to goal 5 has been revised again. So this was the objective under goal 5, right? And we changed the goal to be explore and strengthen partnerships to expand equitable utilization and access to county parks. So would we, as an objective under that goal, it sounds like it looks like there's a couple of comments. So Commissioner Okello, followed by Chair Laguna.
Actually, I'm sorry, I just kept my hand up. I should have lowered it.
Okay, Chair Laguna.
Yeah, my take on this is this should continue to be one of the objectives, but maybe we should have multiple objectives under that new goal.
Okay, great. Okay, and the next slide we removed, or we eliminated this one, which was publicized park events in all 5 districts. Instead, we're replacing it with something related to increasing transparency, correct? And so we'll need to establish specific objectives for that goal.
I think
I don't know if
one, I think just one that I have in mind is about working with the department to improve the like documentation associated with our commission, like the online access to materials.
Improve online access to commission materials.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then I think the other thing I had in mind was, you know, working with the department to understand capacity to deliver more, you know, data associated with items so that when we make recommendations, we can make them in context. That includes budget, but doesn't have to be limited to budget. It's just hard to know if something's a good idea without knowing the constraints around it.
Can you say more about that, or do all the commissioners understand what that means?
I think that if I could make it like objective-y language, somebody please feel free to make it better, would be something like work with the department to, you know, ensure that items brought before commission contain sufficient data for informed decision-making.
I'm feeling like these are more action items. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think the actions could involve things like, you know, meeting with I don't know if it'd be Hannah or Nicholas or both,
okay,
to understand what's possible and the level of effort required. Previewing items. I think that's like a pretty common practice that is not common here, so that we can, you know, surface questions in advance if there's something notable that would be important to know before making a recommendation. Those feel like the two main actions I can think of.
Okay, so that's fine. I just wanted to raise that. Is that an issue in terms of you know, should be objective or actions? But it sounds like the way you're describing it is that you would have more specific actions next to these objectives.
I think so, just so it's really concrete. I mean, it's not an infinite mandate. I think just to understand what's possible and then, you know, have some mechanism to have that be what we see.
Okay. Commissioner O'Kella.
This is a question to Director Calderon. In terms of the commission website, and I'm sorry I've not looked at this. I'm sort of, you know, it's just a thought that came into my mind right now. Do you have a mechanism of gathering information about what members of the public think about how effective a website is, in terms of is it easy to access? Is it friendly? Can they get the things that they need right away? Is there any level of frustration? Do we have information that may help us improve, our website connection with the public?
Commissioner O'Kella, that's a great question. I have yet to see data with regards to how the public receives the Parks Commission website. Our information, when we've surveyed the public, is really geared towards the department's website as a whole, of which the commission website is a part of. And what we've learned is that the department website is the #1 location that the public goes to receive information. So it's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, it's not Twitter, it is in fact the Parks Department website. And so it is very effective in that regard. We would have to probably, I would have to talk with some staff to see if there's a way to pull the information with regards to the commission site as a whole, or the commission site as a page, which is part of the whole.
Right.
That might, yeah, okay, great. So I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to ask Hannah to move to slide 33, which is the current subcommittee members and assignments. So this was taken directly from the work plan. I just listed the current commissioners. So on the budget and performance subcommittee, we have Green and O'Kella, Commissioners Green and O'Kella. On planning and project subcommittee, we have Marilees. The youth commission appointment was O'Kello. Dog management committee, Marilees. Advise board of supervisors regarding fish, game and wildlife policies and programs was Marilees. And strengthen relationship with the foundation was Manny. So let's start with looking at these subcommittees or assignments. Are there any that are no longer necessary? The youth commission appointment, I think has been made, correct? Is it a 2-year term that they serve?
Actually, I think through I think is a youth commission liaison.
Okay.
Not appointment, because
okay.
we don't do
okay,
the
great.
we don't do the appointment.
Perfect. Okay, I'll make.
And I do not believe that I was a liaison. So.
Oh, I was just showing
and
if
I was, then I didn't know.
Well, you know what? Somebody had your name there. So
okay,
in any event,
right.
So let's anything, the strengthen relationship with the foundation, do we need that? Do we want to continue to have that as an assignment for someone? Since we're kind of changing the objective. Okay, so
no, so we can take that out, right? Since the objective is not specifically mentioning the foundation.
Okay. Chair Laguna, did you have the same thought?
I guess I had a more of just like a general question. So are we assuming that the subcommittee should line up to objectives? So should we have like a subcommittee per objective or a subcommittee per goal, or does it just depend?
So I can just tell you how it has worked in the commissions that I've overseen or been part of, is typically we have a subcommittee that is associated with each of the goals. Again, it
right.
depends
So this is
on
where like the
yes.
kind of problematic like disparity in the nature of the goals, like a couple of these things are not like the others in terms of like so I don't know if that would exactly hold. I mean, I can just tell you that one that we're working off of, the budget and performance and planning and projects umbrellas were made up to try to cover the breadth of things that we had with the with the small membership. So they're certainly not ironclad. I think I could see revising them significantly, and maybe it's commissioner driven.
You also can, decide that budget and performance can be attached to certain goals, right? Because they're, they're mostly associated with budget and performance or planning and projects. So Commissioner O'Kelly, you have your hand up.
And I think there was some concern that since there are only 5 of us, and if you were to distribute ourselves, then there'll be people that are going to be, serving on multiple committees, and we stand at risk to some extent of violating, the Brown
Right,
Act.
you can't have more than 2, right?
Not even have more than two, but since some of these objectives may overlap in certain areas, so there may be spillage of of information in terms of what the discussion at the subcommittee level happens that may spread into a third person, participating in the discussion and consequently violating the Brown Act.
Yeah, well, hopefully you all, go ahead.
But Chair Laguna's question is still at the table, though. I mean, really, should we base it on the objectives, or should we base membership on the goals? And that may force us to prioritize, because now we have 6 solid goals, and we cannot spread ourselves equally amongst all the 6 goals. So that may help us decide that we're going to focus on these goals, at least for this year, and then the other goal for the next year. So we have a variety of ways of I think dissecting this and being able to work it out. But then, for the purpose of this discussion, I would suggest that we dissolve all the subcommittees and we really start anew.
How do folks feel with that approach?
Yeah, agree. I think it could be born of each of us bringing our number 1 and number 2 priority. And, if there's overlap amongst 2, then it's a 2-person subcommittee. And if not, it's like those are the couple of things we'd be spearheading.
Okay. Right. Okay. So in terms of process, then might I suggest that I'll work with Hannah and Nick to provide a synopsis of the work that we've done so far, right? So we'll list all of the existing goals, the new goals, the objectives, right? And then the next, however you want to agendize this, the next discussion would be to ask for the commission to bring, to review those, and we'll get those out really soon, to review those and bring with you kind of what are the things that you're energized around and that you want to work on. And then, we can determine, you guys can decide, how to organize yourselves around the committee. So Commissioner Green and then Commissioner O'Kello.
Yeah, just and I like that, and I think there's one other piece of homework when we see what we've done so far, which is to do additional thinking about objectives. Right, we didn't have the conversation about like what else. So I think we have that to us as well before the next time we talk about it.
Any other hands raised? Okay, Chair Laguna.
Sorry, last minute hand raised. So I also think we can use, I think I alluded to it earlier. We're meeting next week, right? So if there are pieces of this that we want to kind of add into our regular agenda, maybe and maybe let's see what kind of comes out of this and kind of the follow-up from this meeting and just kind of the action items. But we may want to put a couple of these things on the agenda, or maybe we can align on who's in what subcommittee for our next meeting, so that we don't let it go another couple months before we actually get this thing into process.
Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. Chair Laguna, so one thing, we will need to get the agenda for next week's meeting turned around fairly quickly here. Yeah. So it would probably, that might be something that we want to decide on tonight. Yep. If possible. Okay.
So do you, okay. Let me know, Nick, if you need, and Chair, if you need my support next week. I'm happy to continue the discussion, or if you feel like you can do that, on your own, that's whatever whatever you decide.
Oh, I'd love to have you aboard if possible. This has been a fantastic session. Yeah, and if you're available, that'd be great. But if not, we can obviously, keep going.
Okay. I definitely have time towards the end of. Is it still? What is your normal commission meeting time? 4 to 6.
Thursday, yeah. Thursday.
4 to 6. Oh, I definitely could do like a 5 to 6 if you wanted to do that at the end, toward the end of the meeting. Okay, great. Okay, so in terms of next steps, again, I'll work to put this together and then it would go out to the commissioners. And we would really need, some focused attention on it, looking at what are some potential objectives of action items. Also, in terms of where your energy and passion is around, what do you want to be involved in? And then we can make further progress on this at the meeting on the 7th.
Fantastic. And then Director Calderon, I guess what level of information you think you're going to need in terms of, because I know there's the turnaround for the regular agenda.
Yeah, Commissioner Laguna, are you asking what type of information we'll need to put the agenda together as to what we will continue from today's conversation? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I mean, I think there's a couple things that probably we would like to discuss, right? So the subcommittee assignments, right? Continued work on the objectives, and then potentially going a little bit deeper into the activities. I just wasn't sure what we'll need for putting together that agenda packet in time to be able to be ready for next Thursday.
And I would probably, Commissioner Laguna, probably let us look at the notes from tonight's conversation internally, have you connect with Hannah on that.
Okay.
But I think we'll have to look at the notes to really see all the items where we were saying, okay, let's follow up on this, follow up on that.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, if you need my input, just just let me know. Obviously want to make sure that we get the right setup for next week.
Certainly.
Great.
Okay, and it is 7 o'clock on the nose.
Excellent. All right. So if there's no further discussion, I move to close the session. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, everyone, and we'll reconvene next Thursday, April 7th.
April 7th it is.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for the time. Appreciate it.
And thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Donna.
everyone.
Sure, thank you. Take care.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Hannah, oh, she's gone already. Hannah, do you
I'm
need,
not here. I'm just ending the meeting, the recording.
do you need me next week?
I'll follow up, but I don't, I do think we probably do, Janet, because I don't think our executive secretary will be up to speed in time.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to just gauge it for any meetings, and I think I'm clear anyway, so.
Okay,
just
thanks, Janet. I'll follow up with a formal
No
email.
problem. I know, I love your group, so it's fun. Don't worry.
Okay, thanks, Janet.
Have a good night. Bye.